Well, we've removed and replaced the engine and transmission 3, 4 times now. A little upsetting. But guess what we're doing today? We are removing it and replacing it again because I'm thinking that essentially this one little plate, this little dust shield that goes between the engine and transmission, it's about an 1/8 inch thick, nothing crazy. The issue here is that I'm thinking it's messing up the throw. So what's happening is that because that 1/8 inch isn't there, the input shaft is actually touching my pilot bearing, and because of that, it's spinning the pilot bearing, causing all my problems. Because I've put on the old clutch setup, that didn't do anything. I put in the extra transmission from Casey, that didn't do anything. Motor still got oil pressure, as you can see. I just checked to see if everything was within spec for thrust. Thrust is pretty tight, so we're good. I mean, at this point, I got to remove and replace that piece on there and change out the pilot bearing again. Yeah, so here in a second, I'll show you what the old pilot bearings are and what they look like, and show you what I saw and why I'm thinking this. So, all right, so these are the previous pilot bearings. Again, here's the first one I had, which was non-existent. It was the second one during the drift meet that started spinning. And here's the one I just took out and put in the new one. And that was just idling. And it spun it. So, after really looking into it, this one is so thin and beveled in, I'm pretty sure that groove right there is from the input shaft beveled area. Went to go look at the second ones. And if you see right about, where's my finger at? Right about here, you can see a little groove. It almost looks like it got punched in and then spun. This is a brand new one, and you can see it right here. You can see it all up on the other side, right here, and especially right here. So long story short, I'm pretty sure that 1/8 inch is making it where it's just long enough to touch these and spin them, causing all my freaking problems. So, luckily today I have Tristan coming over. Tristan's gonna come over and help me do this one more time. And a little Easter egg is we're also gonna be welding up his new racing sim, because Tristan's bougie and bought the most expensive racing sim I've ever seen. Just for pedals, wheels, shifter, shifter, and e-brake. So yeah, a lot of money on that. So he's on his way over. We're gonna start welding that up and pulling his motor. The last 2 times it took me about an hour and a half. So let's do this again. Well, we had time to spare before going to eat sushi with EO, Jasper, and Mindy. So we fitting my fenders back on, and as you heard, cutting them. So, well, luckily it's not fiberglass this time, so we're gonna cut a lot off, because in order for full lock on these fenders, that's not even mocked up yet, but when it's down, it refuses to move. So we're just gonna cut an astronomical amount, and when in doubt later on, we'll tack on some aluminum or something to make some custom fenders for all I care. I don't care.
It's probably steel.
It is steel, 100%.
Yeah, so yeah, we can go buck wild if you want.
We can make some crazy over fenders or something.
Yeah.
The rear, however, I do want the wide body rear ones because of all the dents in the doors.
Here's gonna get dents in the wide body.
Yeah, but well, the wide body covers on top of it, so it just bolts on top, so I can replace those panels.
True.
But all right.
Under this.
Well, lots happened since the last time I talked to y'all. Not that anybody watches this damn channel. This is just for me in the future for the most part. Yeah, we went out to an event, and the second lap, so I did the first parade lap around. Wasn't too bad. Vibration never disappeared. I replaced the transmission. I pulled out the engine and trans like 4 or 5 times. Dealt with all of that. Well, went out, did the first lap, and sure as hell, motor popped. Turns out it was a spun bearing. I will have to insert images here. But thanks to that spun bearing, it killed I had fluid and nastiness all over the place. So now everything's piled in the corner. And EO block is torn apart and cooked. Unfortunately, I will also put in an image here, but it looks like the block is done. So we had to move on to something different. We're trying to make sure we make it to this event out in West Virginia, and not a whole lot of time for that. So unfortunately, that means that my wallet is now empty, credit cards are filled, and I spent quite a bit of money because Rick happened to have a LM4 all aluminum V8 motor lying around at his place for dirt cheap. So I picked that up, and I've spent past 2 weeks ordering literally everything under the sun. With all the items I've ordered, I have ordered reinforcement kit for the E30. Got strut towers, subframe reinforcement, secondary diff mount because that's going to make a lot more torque than before. I have big money here, which is the T56 Magnum F. F is for the F body, and it's my first time ever buying a brand new transmission, so I'm a little excited. But look at her. Nice and beautiful. Oh, it sounds so good. But with that, got an adapter bow housing, flywheel, crazy clutch setup. Then on this side, I have the Sicky swap kit for E30 to LS. Old pan, bushings, all of that, these beautiful motor mounts. I got oil filter relocation kit, and then on top of it all, because it's an LS, I got an AccuSump. Can't go without that. So today's the day I finally start. Kyle's kind of off doing some stuff. He has my trunnions for the motor. I did buy a big ass cam for it, so we'll see how that turns out. But we're probably gonna do a whole lot of the body work today. Transmission setup, we'll do the diff mount, the reinforcement of the subframe. I bought a new power steering rack from a Z3 to make my ratio shorter, and pretty much it's just time to start getting at it. We only got 2 months before this event, and I got to get to at least one event beforehand so I can learn the new setup on the car. So wish me luck. Well, we tore down the motor some more, took off the heads, took off the front pump, all this other stuff. Don't mind the mess, random new parts. But so spent pretty much all day pressure washing, trying to clean these heads, or at least this one. Took all day to make it look like that. It started off like that, so I still have some more to go. But start tearing everything off the front end, the bottom end. We're leaving the bottom end for now, but you know, just not too bad overall. Definitely messy and old and needs some fucking oil, and let's just say the pressure washer and degreaser about to do a lot of work. But yeah, it took way too long pressure washing all those, or just that one head. So we I didn't really record much. We were still getting stuff done, but we reinforced the subframe. I installed the new Z3 rack. We lowered the diff, installed the spacers or the washers that you need to lower the diff for the new setup. Cleaned up a lot of the old stuff and basically prepped everything for the motor itself. Now we just gotta get the motor side done. I figured out I forgot to order a clutch, so that's currently on the way. New sensors, the whole nine, all the little bits that I kept missing. But once all that gets here next weekend, we're probably gonna turn around and tear the rest of this apart, pressure wash, clean everything, and hopefully reassemble. So I will see you then. Well, lots happened. It's been too hot to record, to be honest with you. I just haven't had the drive, not enough time. But essentially, let me catch y'all up. Let me try to start recording a little more. Cleaned up the garage. E30's inside. Clean up is a relative term. Still got all the tools there. the bikes, the whatnot. But E30 is now inside. I can keep working on it. As you can see, the LS is nowhere to be had. So, wonder where it went. Do a little YouTube magic. So, as you can see, the LS is bolted in. Engine and trans mounts are on. And now it's time to do all the tiny little things, the wiring harness, the intake, the random broken bolts, the finding a new hose for the upper mount, figuring out how long of a belt for the pulley system, the whole nine. Broke a couple things, broke the face and the fuel pressure regulator setup, so it's not looking too hot. Bent the junk out of this this poor little brake line, so I gotta fix that too. But I have to remove the intercooler, make a better bracket to hold the radiator fully flush because there's not a whole lot of room, as you can see, and wire everything, get everything set up. Looking at the header design, still don't know what I'm going to do with all that, so that's another thing I got to look at. Probably going to remove and replace this electric power steering pump all the way over to this corner where the intercooler pipe was. Makes it small. It makes a small to and fro the rack, so it might help out a lot. But I need that space over there for the header, so we will see. Well, as you saw from the time lapse, a lot got done, partially. most of the wiring and some other stuff. We did find out that the drive shaft sent to us by Siki was 3 inches off, so that's fun. Email sent out, and let's see how their customer service is. But other than that, I got pretty much everything plugged up. I'm missing a coolant temp sensor. That's what this bolt's here for. Spark plugs. Still have to set up a power cord from the alternator all the way to the battery. When I move the electric power steering over, I'll probably tee off the power source there. Just jump it in and over. We'll see how that turns out. A lot of parts from the E30, like the IAT sensor and the pressure sensor. This was the oil pressure sensor for the SR, but now it's the fuel pressure sensor because apparently the Rebel needs it. Cool, right? So now I'm figuring out, I got my injector harnesses with my adapters to Miltech. So the Miltech 3s, I think they are. It's a crazy amount of like adapter harnesses and whatnot. So this underneath this intake is an absolute mess. I'm going to try to clean it up, but since this is meant for a swap, they gave so much length because they're not used to everything being right here and close. They're used to it being like a big truck super far away. Dealing with vacuum ports. You got the one vacuum line currently. There it is. The one vacuum line currently that leads to the fuel pressure regulator. So that's fun. As for underneath side, isn't a whole lot of much. All right, let me go ahead and rotate this intake real quick. So it's sitting down all nice and pretty. Let's just say doing wiring and anything underneath this intake is going to be hell on earth. But it looks pretty good in the car. This low profile intake definitely isn't as low as we thought it was going to be. So looks like I'm going to have to cut the hood. Not to mention this, maybe it'll focus. There you go. This is definitely taller than all of this. And I'm probably going to have to drill a hole in the middle and chop this top off to trim it down. Luckily, it was some cheap eBay thing, but it's for the throttle cable. All the chrome I thought would kind of look tacky. I just didn't honestly want to pay the extra money to spray paint it black. I could do that later on. But it's looking pretty good. Our biggest hurdle is that the drive shaft is 3 inches short. And I got to do some wiring. And then the biggest hurdle besides the drive shaft is legitimately the oiling. So because we're running an AccuSump, we're going to have to run the oil filter relocation kit down, over through the motor, through the firewall, all the way back to the AccuSump, then all the way back up to the front where I'm going to run an oil cooler, and then back into the freaking motor. So it's going to be a lot of line, and I'm going to run into an absolute lot of oil line, an AN line. So that's going to be actually more expensive than pretty much anything else on this motor, which is crazy to say. And we're pretty deep on the amount we owe in it now. But lower radiator hose from the SR fit pretty good, actually. So, where is it at? You can see part of it right there. But essentially, that's actually hooked up to the radiator and the water pump side. So that actually works out great. This side's going to be interesting because I have to have a 90, a straight, into another 90. So we'll see how that turns out. Got to figure out length of belt to put on this bad boy. Put the starter on, did test that. Let's just say that high torque starter is absolutely crazy. Granted, there's no spark plugs in there, so there was not a whole lot of pressure to fight, but it spun that motor quick. So looks like I'll barely have to crank it every time I want to start, but I'm pretty much done for the night. I'm cooked. It was a big blow finding out that the drive shaft from a very expensive kit doesn't fit. Let's see how their customer service is. I'm hoping they get back and send me a new one that's 3 inches longer. If not, we have a problem. But I still got to set up some relays and some power lines. I'll probably do tomorrow. I might drill into the water pump to set up for the vents, the head port vents, or whatever they're called. I have the stock ones for the front. The back ones are capped off, but the front's got to go into something, and I have no clue where to put a 1/8 inch fitting in the coolant system. So I don't know if I want to run like that jerry rig middle. It goes upper radiator hose, cut it in the middle. You put this adapter in there with a NBT freaking threaded piece that you run into a nipple, or I could just drill that into the back of the water pump housing, and that won't hurt anything. So we will see. But finally got some stuff done. It's been hot, been a lot of money and a lot of waiting on people and things. We are getting somewhere. ECU's already wired up. I have to wire in the ignition switch. Clear out all the wiring from previous setups. A lot of my gauge pods will not be hooked up this time, sadly, but luckily I have a CAN bus dash. Big old shout out to this hidden company at the time. It's Power Digital Dash. It was $600 at the time, and it's CAN bus straight to the ECU, and it works out great. But yeah, exhaust is gonna be a pain. But I hope this was a fun little video. I've basically just been out of it ever since the SR blew. I didn't want to record, didn't really want to do anything, didn't want to talk. It's weird talking to yourself or a camera. So we'll see. But next time, see you later.